This review covers the Little Hustler Datsun pickup. It's a skill level 2 kit from MPC in 1/25th scale, number 982. Now, the Japanese brand Nissan was known as Datsun until 1986 and resurrected in 2012 for its lower price models. And this is a kit in the gasser style racing truck from back in the day. It's a real head turner, especially with those awesome graphic decals. It's a wild mini pickup dragster and was originally issued in 1974 and re-released in 2022. It's a simple project for beginners, but it has enough detail to offer a challenge. It features a supercharged 400 cubic inch Chevy engine, a flip front end, pad printed drag racing slicks and tires, and lots of chrome parts. There's 115 pieces molded in white, clear red, and those chrome parts, and the tires are hollow vinyl with pad printed sidewalls. There's a huge, colorful sheet of decals with lots of sponsors on it. And when it's completed, it's about 6.5 inches long, 2 3/4 inches high, and 3 inches wide. Talk about some wow factor. Here's that awesome looking set of decals. As I mentioned, they're very colorful. The register is good, and there's plenty of sponsored decals to enhance the build as well, to make it look like a true drag truck. Here are the parts in the kit, and as you can see, there's a good number of them. Even though this is a special purpose build, they're mostly all used for this build, so it's actually got a lot of detailed parts that go along with it, and yet it's still a pretty easy build. There's very little flash, and it fits together fairly well, with some exceptions that we'll talk about. Construction starts with the wheel and tire assemblies, and as you can see, those slicks are massive. It might be a little bit too big for a real truck of this size, but they have a great wow factor for your display. And the wheels, of course, go together well. The center line's there. You just need to make sure you scrape any glue or any paint or chrome so that they will glue together properly. But they just can be assembled and then squeezed into the tires. The engine is pretty well detailed, and as you can see here with the basic stuff, you'll be putting together the block, the oil pan, the intake, the heads, and some chrome pieces. Of course, the block's painted a gloss red, and the steel color goes on the transmission. And next we'll assemble the blower, and we're going to add the blower belt there after we've painted the belt flat black. And of course, once again, a lot of chrome. Scrape that off before you glue those parts together. Next, we can add the butterfly catcher there, as well as the valve covers and starter, etc. And we'll put those together and let the assembly set aside to dry. And here's a look at the completed engine. You can see it looks pretty nice on the stand here. It would look even nicer if you wired it, with ignition wires, but that'll be up to you. And as you can see here from the other side, it is pretty detailed and it'll look great inside the engine bay there. Also, you'll see the headers are not added here as yet, and we'll do that after the engine's been added to the frame. Okay, let's work on the frame and the front suspension pieces there. You see all painted black except for those bright yellow shock absorbers. And here's what that assembly looks like, and barely noticed on the box art, you'll see in plain view here, those wheels are turned. Yes, it has a posable steering that's incorporated into the front suspension. Now we'll move on to the back end here. You see the leaf springs there in the axle. The top of the axle there is added, and then we've got some shackles and of course the shocks and a drive shaft. So we're going to add those next. Make sure once again you scrape that paint off before you glue the parts. Use some strong setting glue to make sure that it's a good stable configuration. And here you'll see the rest of the parts to complete the substructure here, the frame. We're going to add the radiator, of course, and the headers are, two pieces each. They are glued together, added to the engine, but get your motor into place first, and also simultaneously the drive shaft into the pumpkin back there. And then go ahead and place your headers into position with a little bit of slow setting glue to make sure that you've got them aligned properly and that they're in the correct position when you look at the unit from underneath. Now we'll work on the interior. You see the dash has been kind of picked out with some chrome pen as well as some steering wheel detailing, and these all go together into the tub, which is painted aluminum. And the two seats there are curious. I guess you could turn this into a street drag unit if you had some extra parts from your parts box, but as it is, it's almost a strip only vehicle. And don't forget that roll bar and the fire extinguisher, which is kind of a requirement for most tracks. We're going to scrape off the chrome from those little nubs and add the ladder style traction bars. Of course, they go to the axle there and then up front where they mount. And they've got some wheelie bars that you put in back. They also include a push bar for the unit, but it comes with a starter, so I left the starter in place and the push bar off. Now we turn the unit upside down. You can see how that structure is attached, and also note the exhaust headers there, how they are, equidistant. They're not all nice and vertical coming out of the engine area, and your chassis is complete. And now we start working on the parts for the body. The way it's molded, I didn't find any noticeable parting lines to be sanded off, which is a plus. The front end is a tilt style, but it's not realistic in a sense, because the cowl is part of the whole front end, which normally would belong to the cab. So nonetheless, this is what you're working with, and there's a little bit of area there that need to be opened up a little bit more for the engine clearance. Now here you see we've added the hood hinges to the front end there, and you can also see that there are some push pin marks there, ejector pin marks, that you'd want to fill if you were building this as a contest model. We're going to talk about those hood hinges a little bit later as well. Now towards the right upper side there, you see those red arrows. They're pointing to some pins at the rear of the chassis, but there's no holes in the bed floor for them to mount in. Now I trimmed the pins flush, and I found something here to be a problem. The interior floor has pins to locate it to the chassis, but the marks inside the body to locate the interior aren't quite right. They didn't quite line up. So I wound up with some gaps when I put the front end on, and I solved this by removing the body, putting the front end on first, and then locating the body on the chassis to close up the gap. There's still a small gap, but it's not as bad. And we'll jump ahead a little bit. You see a lot of things happening here. The interior was painted and the windshield applied, but also, of course, the body assembled and painted. Now, I assembled the bed and attached it to the cab before painting, and I taped the front end to the cab so that I could paint the entire body at one time for correct color match on the different parts. Now, there's a lot of decals here that are really colorful, and they go in place really nicely. They come off quickly, but you'll need plenty of warm water to position them, and then just squeeze out the water or air bubbles so that they're in place. You won't need any setting solution because all the panels are flat. Also note that I painted the tonneau cover a flat black color and attached that. Actually, you can just put it in place after the body is fully dry. I mentioned earlier how I put the cab in first and then added the body to the back in the right position so that it would reduce that gap. And here you see those together now. Now you see the front end pieces here, and the grill was, the insert was painted flat black, and then the rest of the parts were picked out with some silver paint. And you've got your headlight fillers. They go into the nacelles there, and then the whole set is added to the front end. Now you can prepare the parts for the taillights. You see the bezels there were painted silver with a little black touch-up on the edges, and the tail lights themselves are red see-through plastic, but I added a little detail for the backup light area with a little white paint. And so here's what you see of what I had left over. There's some parts from different versions of the kit, so you'll have some of these pieces left over as well. Well, there you have it. You'll probably notice in some of the photos here, I left the drag chute off. It seemed to be a little small for its intended use, so but that's up to you in the back end there. Now, on the front end, there's that gap between the body and the front end. Now, one way to maybe adjust for that would be to either open up those hood hinges or take them off completely and just set your body in place. Another thing that you'll note was that the body to the bed had to be adjusted a little bit. Those two issues, they're kind of minor issues if you just know about them in advance. So take advantage of our review here and go ahead and make those modifications for an even better looking little Hustler. But as you can see, by itself, it still looks really nice. It's a cool looking model, and it's kind of in the vein of how teenagers wanted to make their vehicles look, those massive tires and etc. That's what looked good back in the 70s. So if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations, where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.